So a lot going on this morning, a lot going on over the weekend in Chicago and Portland and all over the country. So a lot to get in. A lot going on in Indianapolis this weekend. Indianapolis was sort of the center of the news universe with that weird story we'll get into in a little bit as well. So, but you know the number, 219-845-1100. So, Bob has a meeting, so he takes the first Monday of the month off. It's basically just us. I did invite, I have a guest coming in at 7:30. Levita Sparks Wade, whose name you may remember, she's going to come in and we're going to talk about sort of her story a little bit, talk about what she's been going through, and we'll get caught up on that. So in the meantime, it's just us. So I don't know. I guess we could just start going through the news of the weekend on the national level. Obviously, there was a few incidents with ICE in Chicago and the Chicago police and protesters and Pritzker and there's a lot going on there, and it's sort of that escalation that I was concerned about. Ever since, like for instance, going back to the Charlie Kirk murder, a lot of people were saying we need to turn down the temperature, and it seems like we're doing the opposite, which is sort of to be expected. So we've got a lot going on there. So we have this story out of Indianapolis. Former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez is charged after surveillance video shows an alleged fight in downtown Indianapolis alley. That was a weird story. Again, not a sports guy, so I didn't know a whole lot about that. But Indianapolis has seen its share of violence and crime in the downtown area. So when this story came out about Mark Sanchez, it was sort of no surprise. A lot of people jumped to say, look, you're just proving once again downtown Indianapolis no longer safe for people just to kind of wander around. It's a nice area. I go down there occasionally, and you can wander around the downtown. There's a lot of different things to do. Some stuff family friendly. If you're taking your kids, you can go to the museums and stuff like that. If you're older, there's plenty to do there. But so let's get into that. So former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez was charged early Sunday morning by Marion County prosecutors for his role in a stabbing that left him seriously injured early Saturday in downtown Indianapolis. He faces misdemeanor criminal charges of battery resulting in injury, public intoxication, and unlawful entry of a motor vehicle for his role in the altercation. So the original story that came out was that he was stabbed. And of course, people kind of jumped to the conclusions that it was some sort of crime or something like that somebody stabbed him, while trying to steal his wallet or something like that. But as it turns out, the Indianapolis police were called to a pub on West Washington Street at 12:30 in the morning. When officers arrived, they found Sanchez suffering from stab wounds. So basically what it sounds like, there was a second man who was found in a nearby alley with cuts to his face. And this was a 69-year-old man that was working. He was doing, one story said he was collecting used cooking oil. Another story said he was doing food deliveries, like, dropping off food to somebody. But basically, it sounds like Sanchez engaged this person in the alley, and they were arguing about where his truck was parked or blocking the alley. And at some point, they started fighting. They started shouting at each other. Sanchez climbed inside the vehicle, and despite being told to leave, Sanchez appeared intoxicated, smelled of alcohol, and claimed to have spoken to the hotel manager, who said the truck was not supposed to be there. So basically, these two men get into a fight. One of them is Sanchez, get into a fight with an older man. The 69-year-old man told police he used pepper spray to defend himself. But when Sanchez continued advancing, he thought, this guy's trying to kill me, pulled out a knife and stabbed Sanchez. So again, a weird story. And, I don't know, Lena, do you know much about, you're a football person. Do you watch much sports?
I do not.
So I don't know. I worked for Fox Sports for a while, so I met a lot of these guys working for the Chicago Bears and stuff like that. It's such a weird story that, you have these guys, former NFL quarterback, you assume he's well off. He's going to be on Fox Sports on Sunday doing the Colts game. It's just kind of like one of those, what goes through your mind when, when you're sort of a media personality or sports personality, like I'm going to, get drunk and get into an argument with an old man in an alley, just sort of a weird thing to hear. So it was kind of surprising when this story took that turn of events where it went from, what we thought was like a robbery to now it was basically a fight between Sanchez and this old man who was either delivering food or collecting oil. So just a weird story, and definitely sounds like alcohol was involved. No shocker there, but it did put sort of a spotlight on Indianapolis. It was national news all day yesterday, and again, it's a thing with Indianapolis. We kind of think of it as this quiet downtown area, but it has seen its share of violence lately. I know a lot of people that I know that live there. We had Rob Kendall on recently. A lot of people that are there and go into the downtown area, they say that they've just seen an increase in crime and homelessness and things like that. So, I know our governor and lieutenant governor tweeted about it and talked about the increasing crime in Indianapolis, which they later deleted their tweets after finding out the full story. But again, it's something that you think about when you're planning on taking your family somewhere. Obviously a lot of us have reservations about taking small children or our family to Chicago for an evening, but also this idea of taking them like to Indianapolis, where they have really nice, the museums and zoos and things like that. There's a lot to do there. But it's something that you think about when you are taking, when you're going downtown or going something like that. So we have that story. And if you want to chime in on that, the number. I wanted to get into, obviously, the big news of the weekend here more locally is what's going on in Chicago with the ICE protesters. You had an altercation where a woman tried to ram, she tried to ram a ICE vehicle. So basically, this woman who was federally charged, is it Miramar Martinez, and an accomplice, Anthony Santos Ruiz. They were arrested for assaulting and impeding federal officers after allegedly ramming and boxing in Border Patrol vehicles, which they were then surrounded, and agents fired 5 shots, injuring Martinez. So, Lena, have you been following this story at all? Is this something that's been catching your attention?
I have. I've been hearing a lot about ICE in Chicago
Yeah.
recently.
So, and I know that there's some video of it, because of course there's always video from 5 different angles now whenever something like this happens, but it really was shocking to see. And I mean, again, that's one of the things about video is you see it and it's sort of, you say, okay, here's what happened, but also it can be, if people started recording later or something like that, it can also just sort of be part of the story. But, from what it looked like, this vehicle just sort of approached an ICE vehicle and sort of ran it off the road. And then their vehicle was surrounded by ICE who opened fire on them, which, again, we don't know sort of the backstory of what happened, if there was any sort of engagement prior to that. It just sort of a weird thing that somebody would see an ICE vehicle with flashing lights and go, I'm going to run them off the road. Because, again, they are federal agents, and everybody's talking about them being armed and things like that. And it's sort of just a weird thing. Apparently she was armed. But again, it's like, what are you going to do against, an armed group of police officers? There's an interesting thing that's happening in addition to that. There have been discussions about whether the Chicago police have been told to stand down. So that became a second sort of a side story to this. It says the nation's largest police officer union condemned reports that Chicago officers were told not to help ICE agents surrounded by protesters, calling it a shocking violation of law enforcement's duty to protect fellow officers in danger. So this is sort of another thing, sort of another thread on this that I've been talking about for a while. Is what concerns me about this situation is you basically have officers working the same area, but not under the same command structure. So you essentially have federal agents, you have ICE agents, you could have National Guard under federal control, but then you have local police, state police under local control, and they aren't exactly working together. They actually, they're basically not coordinating. So what happens is, for instance, we saw a video of the National Guard or ICE or whoever it was deploying tear gas. The Chicago police weren't prepared for that, so they essentially got tear gassed. So again, it's this weird, complicated situation, and it really concerns me when you have these sort of tensions brewing, and now you have the two sides kind of not working together. And I know that, so for instance, there's going to be another J.B. Pritzker address today. where J.B. Pritzker is set to host a news conference to address the Trump administration's effort to militarize American cities and the current state of federal deployments to Illinois. So they are obviously they're filing legal challenges to the deployment. There was a judge late on Sunday found that, if I understand this right, so President Trump, because he was blocked from using the National Guard in Portland, he was going to nationalize the 300 troops from California. So basically using California troops, which of course Gavin Newsom said, not happening. But President Trump wanted to use Guard troops from California and send them up to Portland. A U.S. District Judge, Karen Immergold, ruled the action was unlawful and unconstitutional, and basically issuing an emergency temporary restraining order to halt the deployment of California's National Guard to Portland. So again, sort of an interesting idea where you have the president, you have his administration saying, Chicago and Portland and cities are on fire, and the people there are saying, no, it's fine. It's not that bad. People were making memes of, a farmer's market in Portland going, oh, look, the city is on fire. So it's, again, an interesting thing where you have local officials saying, things are fine, we don't need you, and the president insisting on sending troops. I just go back to my original statement, which is if, I believe in states' rights, so if a state doesn't want your help, pull out. And I think that would be, pull out all federal resources, pull them out, and then let the state decide if they want you back in. But, it seems like if you're not wanted there, then, again, elections have consequences. If people want their local government run a certain way, if people want certain things, let them have it. And so that's sort of where I'm at with this is, it's sort of an issue where President Trump is insisting on, law enforcement and dealing with people that are here illegally and things like that. And then the local people are saying, no, this is our community. You're not welcome. So you said we got some calls. Why don't we take a couple calls? Let's start there. Good morning, caller. You're the first caller of the week. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Chuck. So I really didn't expect to be on the air. I was just calling with the traffic update.
Sure. Yeah, what do you got?
So on 8094 westbound, right past Calumet Avenue, there's an accident. The vehicle is in the left lane in the wall, but there is debris also in the left lane. So just people be careful because it's going to slow down. I'm already at 80 now. So I passed it, but there was a truck all the way over in the right lane. So I assume it was between a vehicle and a truck.
So we've got the left lane is closed right now and blocked, or is it?
No,
okay.
I'm saying the left lane is blocked.
Okay, the left lane is blocked.
The vehicle is in the shoulder,
okay,
but debris is in the left lane.
So everybody's slowing down. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
So then,
just beware.
Okay, so you're saying westbound at Calumet, and then you've got to slow down probably
at Calumet.
Is it slow down starting at like the boulevard at this point? Something like that?
Yeah, it started slowing down like right past the boulevard. Everything started coming to a halt, and that's when I came up on it and saw what the issue was. So I don't know. It's probably backed up a lot more now than when I first came because it had probably just initially happened maybe a couple of minutes before I got there.
And so at that point, no police or fire on scene, so they're going to be getting there.
No, right.
Right, so they'll be closing lanes here shortly and cleaning that up. So
yes.
So expect westbound 8094 probably going to get worse before it gets better as they clean up this accident. So we'll keep an eye on that. Not even showing up on the traffic map yet, but thank you, of course, for getting to that for us, and we'll keep an eye on that. Did you want to chime in on anything else, or did you just want to drop the traffic?
No, I'll listen to you. I enjoy you because you know what? You start the week on Monday, so it's great and refreshing to hear a program where no one's complaining about Tuesday's program. So keep up the great work, Chuck.
Well, the same goes for Tuesday. Don't complain about Monday, and then we'll be in.
I don't.
We never do. So, but yeah, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. We'll look forward to hearing you tomorrow. So thank you for that call. We'll keep an eye on that.
Thank you, Chuck.
Hey, you have a good day. Stay safe out there.
You too.
So we're hearing from Verley, westbound 8094 at Calumet. There's a vehicle in the wall. It could be involving also a semi. So as police and everyone responds to that, expect there could be more lane closures, expect that there'll be cleanup and stuff like that. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that, and we'll let you know how that goes. But expect building traffic westbound 8094 starting at Calumet. So if you're getting on, just expect to sit in some traffic, listen to us as you head into Illinois. So do we have any other callers? We want to take another call? Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Chuck. How are you doing?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Great. You know, I see, and I try to bring things to this table that I feel many people miss.
Sure.
A different angle, just a different perspective. And I'm always leery, and I don't know if Verley would appreciate this. I'm always leery of the political angle of politicians when certain issues arise, i.e., locally, we had Mayor Tom McDermott Jr., who always portrays himself as pro-law enforcement. I remember when the African-American couple with the 2 children in the back seat in Hammond, Indiana, refused to get out.
Oh, in the van? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And he was going to go. He's going to fight that tooth and nail. He's pro-law enforcement. And many of us, including myself, so, okay, seems like a different type of local elected official that's going to back his men and women in blue. Then fast forward today, whereby it seems like from a political perspective, in my opinion, the political party, primarily the Democrats nationally, are basically being taken over by the left.
Okay.
So this issue happens in Chicago, and the mayor of the city of Hammond feels it necessary to call the law enforcement people working in that city, Chicago, clowns.
Ah, yes.
I'm thinking of, I don't want to get into should they be there, am I pro National Guard, because I have problems with that. I, too, share many of your libertarian viewpoints. Okay, I want to separate that. But I just find it interesting. Has that mayor of the city of Hammond decided, I tried many angles to further his political career, and basically, let's face it, it's going to be Hammond, Indiana, okay? And then it's going to be on to business. That's the career. I noticed he was on the air, on his pod, talking to Jay, talking about we need to be moderate, we need to talk to each other, we need to come more to the middle. I'm just of the assumption that he's realized he's lost that argument. His party's gone at the national level. I'm not talking about you local Democrats. Please, that's not my point. I believe he recognizes to hitch his future endeavors, it must be nationally, or it's got to be out of hand.
Trying to make sort of shocking things, trying to get attention, things like that. No, I get. So you're saying, and I heard this from a couple people, that he called, what did he call the National Guard or somebody? He called ICE
the Border
clowns.
Patrol, excuse me.
Called them clowns. Okay.
Correct.
So, and I was told he called someone else clown. So I'm glad you clarified. And so, one of the things I always think about when I hear stuff like that, especially in Chicago, I've met a lot of these guys. Just like with firemen, they come from families. It's like 3 generations of police officers, and same with firefighters. I meet these guys, and I even here locally, so many great guys, Hammond Fire, Mike Hall, who comes on here a lot, so many great guys and gals that just want to serve their community. And so it's sort of disappointing when you hear what's happening, but at the end of the day, I always think back to this idea that if you are a public servant, you are essentially doing the work of whatever politicians are your bosses, right? Whoever signs your paycheck. And so I was thinking back to in Chicago years ago, the Chicago police, one time they basically shut down a city council meeting and said, you don't have our backs. We don't feel that you support us. Ergo, we can't do our job. So if you have the situation where you have, the city leadership and the rank and file not agreeing on what the job is, that's where problems come in. And even now, this idea that maybe you've got, different jurisdictions, different law enforcement agencies in the same place, but not coordinating to the point where one might deploy tear gas and the other one doesn't have masks ready. At the end of the day, these are just people trying to do their jobs. Whether you agree with, I know there's been a lot of hate on people for, the ICE was offering bonuses and things like that. But at the end of the day, I think all of these people have the same sort of goal, which is to serve their community and then get home safely to their families, right? I mean, At the end of the day, I think regardless of that, and going to your point, one of the things that we're seeing about the politicking, and I've said this over and over again, is you've got President Trump, who obviously he's a very, he's very outspoken. He doesn't, you never have to wonder what his thoughts are. But then also on the other side, you have J.B. Pritzker, who, again, a guy who's probably has his sights on running for president here. And so you have two guys that basically know they're under the microscope because, JB has to hold a certain position and Trump has to hold a certain position. And the problem is they're so far apart right now that at no point are these two guys going to get together and go, look, we disagree on, what's happening with immigration or something like that. But at the end of the day, we got to keep people safe. This idea that people are ramming ICE vehicles. ICE is, ICE arrested a Chicago councilwoman. At a certain point, these guys need to put this aside and go, hey, can we at least find some common ground? But the problem is their parties would attack them, and it would probably affect J.B. Pritzker negatively with his party if he comes out and says, hey, I'm going to work with Trump and try to find a solution. He can't say that right now if he plans to run for president, and that's unfortunate.
Right. And isn't it unfortunate the pawns in all of this are us, the citizens of the United States of America, and all it winds up becoming is how political elite individuals could progress their career. That's all it's about. No matter what we say, we could argue all day long on these airwaves, and we could avoid subjects, and certain hosts will talk about it. This one will get mad at this one, then they'll both get mad at the callers. But my focus is always on the self-centered elected officials. Please pay attention to that, because locally, Prosecutor Brown, Carter, back the mayor, showed up when people were not supporting. Then, he may run against Carter. Fast forward, the Evan Bay's in town. Let's show a picture of Evan's son and Evan Bay outside of El Taco Royale and Hammond. Well, I can remember back when Mayor McDermott was unhappy with Evan Bay for ditching the Democrat Party at the national level. But see, now it can, opportunity. See, I'm always seeing the angle. What is the angle of, I'm going to show up as a former governor in the city of Hammond with my son, who, by the way, this young man may be an potential great elected official for the future. And then all the local people get all happy because, their guys may have a potential to win a certain office. And I just see the game. I see the game go over and over. And then the full outrage. One elected official, they're angry at each other. Case in point, the Batista situation. Right. They were all in love with each other. All of them. All of these feuding people. Because I was in the audience when our former governor at the time was speaking and told us to our face, you're entitled to all the bloated government you want to pay for. And I specifically remember seeing the mayor and our present congressman sitting together, they're good old buddies, and I could mention other names, and they were outraged. How dare you tell us the truth? Which I was never offended by it. It was the truth. Now, fast forward, when those political powers, they sort of separated, now they're all enemies. Spadasado, same scenario. They were all good buddies, and I could mention some labor officials as well. These were all, they're all in love with each other. They're all in, and then when the political scenario falls apart, now they're bitter. And then you got your little soldiers on the side. Oh yeah, I'm with this guy. I'm against this guy. Do you hear it on the radio? Oh, that former guy, he's horrible. 2 weeks from today, all those people could be in line, and they'll all say how wonderful they all are. And no one has the guts to point out their hypocrisy. Our country is basically bankrupt, but all they care about is their next political move. And it doesn't matter which party they are. It doesn't matter. That's why I so appreciate mayors such as Copeland. Mayor Copeland, he worries about East Chicago. As a matter of fact, people say, why doesn't he get involved in this and that and the other? If I was a 65, 67-year-old guy and I lived in the city of East Chicago and I knew that's where I was going to die, guess what? That's where I want you to concentrate your powers, not what's your next political gig. And I see it, man. I see it. I just think Mayor wants to get the heck out of Hammond, okay? That's basically it.
Right. Well, I mean, again, like I said, we see the same thing with J.B. Pritzker, is obviously he's campaigning. So, yeah. So, okay. Yeah, completely agree. And so I appreciate the call. We do have to take a break. Yeah, no, I mean, all valid points. And again, it's sort of, that's the, like you said, the hypocrisy of sort of politics is that you have to essentially, you're picking a side, and regardless of, you really can't criticize your side. And I think that's where a lot of these issues come in at is, we can't, what I always talk about is the sides, you need to be your harshest critic. You need to constantly be looking at what are we doing, and is it the right thing for the people? And I think far too often, to his point, is it's not about the people. It's about what the party wants or what our needs are or what we're trying to do to push an agenda forward. And the people are getting lost in that. And that's something we'll definitely get into today in the show, is because regardless of your opinion on what's happening in Chicago or something like that, there are people that are losing their lives. There are people that are losing their children. And, if you're not there, I spent a lot of time as a journalist. I spent a lot of time going to churches and working with churches in Chicago. I was working with a church recently. They had a drive-by shooting as Bible class was letting out on a Friday night. So again, for us, we're sort of removed from this violence, and it's easy to say, well, it's not that bad, but it's hard to say that to somebody who just lost a child over the weekend in a senseless killing. Well, it's not that bad. We're sorry you lost your child, but things aren't that bad. And so that's one of the things I really look at is, who has skin in the game here, and it's the people who are affected by the violence, not the people that are sort of far removed from it. So why don't we take a break? We'll be back with more Summer of Chuck, even though it's fall. So the Summer of Chuck in the fall, because we haven't updated our graphic. Summer of Chuck 2, the Electric Boogaloo, here on WJOB.